Welcome to another Hard Drive Radio Rock Roundtable discussion. I am your friend and humble narrator, Lou Brutus. Joining me from Pittsburgh, where they are obviously more or less practicing social distancing, my friends Brandon and Chris, who come to us from the band Crowbot. Gentlemen, good to see you.
Good to see you, man.
Hey, objects in the Zoom mirror appear closer than they are.
Listen, we kiss all the time anyway, man. It doesn't matter.
And Charlie from Anthrax joins me from his home. Charlie, it's great to see you. How you holding up?
I'm holding up great. How are you guys?
So far, so good. Considering the circumstances, I'll take it.
Yeah.
Actually, I think this is the first time I've done one of these, and everybody involved in it, with the exception of myself, has their own coffee. So if you would please, because I've been doing this long enough. Charlie, I think you're at least in the same boat as me. I remember the days of cocaine and Jack Daniels, and now it's mineral water and coffee for most everybody. Charlie, are you actually much of a coffee person? Because I'm addicted to the shit.
Yes, I've been addicted to coffee since I was, really young, like little. We're talking like 4 years old. My mother and sisters told me when I was younger, I used to go around the table and whoever didn't finish their coffee out, just shoot it. I've never stopped. I just love it.
And Chris, Brandon, you guys, what was your first introduction to the world of too much caffeine?
I waited until I was a little bit older, and
he was 5 years old.
He was mainlining it then at 5. So
yeah, it was a dark period. 5 was a tough one. No, I mean, I think it goes hand in hand with touring, man. Like sometimes that's the only thing keeping us up at night, so we don't wreck the van.
And I think our name came first. We said, Chupa Java, that'd be a good coffee name. And
yeah,
we sort of ran.
Listen, any kind of merch item that we can put a pun with, we're gonna do.
That's awesome.
And actually, a question I'd like to get from each one of you. It's one thing if you're in a band and you put out albums and you have family members who come and see you and they're happy for you, even if they don't quite understand the rock and roll thing. However, when you get your own coffee, that's the kind of thing that even like a great aunt is going to be impressed by or really taken aback by. Charlie, if you would, what was the familial reaction to actually being involved with your own coffee brand?
The first thing was, is this strong? How strong is it? Because I know you like strong coffee. Is this going to make you go crazy? All these things like hit me. It's like, just try it, Because we're talking like maybe 15 years ago, before Starbucks, was on every street corner or drive-through. The coffee in New York especially, people would always run on Dunkin'. That's the thing in New York. I always hated it. I thought it tasted like watered down coffee. But yeah, so they were used to that weak shit, Dunkin' Donuts. And then I gave them some like real high powered stuff. I think they saw like stars and everything. And I'm like, this is good. And then now that's all they drink,
Yeah, it's funny. I always mention to people, like, listen, you don't need cocaine. You don't need methamphetamine. If you want to get that sort of, nervous, strung out feeling, drink too much strong black coffee. It's the same thing and your nose doesn't bleed.
Yeah, I think I insulted Dunkin' Donuts a bit too much in that part. So
well, I don't suppose they'll be sponsoring.
They've got enough money, man. Don't even worry about it.
Yeah, American doesn't run on Dunkin', by the way. Just
right.
And Brandon, Chris, what about you guys? Like family reactions to, oh my God, they have their own coffee.
What? We got to grind this ourselves? That sucks.
Yeah. Yeah. None of them have grinders. Yeah. It was one of those things. Our drummer used to work at this coffee, Third Coast Coffee in Austin, and he's such a coffee nerd, and he took us there and had us try a bunch of their different roasts, and this was the one that we went with for the Chupa Javra. But yeah, man, it was awesome, and like our family, they just think it's cool. Our hot sauce and stuff. They love all that novelty shit. Yeah.
Do you find with coffee sometimes, like with craft beers, like I've got friends of mine that I refuse to have a beer with because they want to talk about like 48 different brands of beer, but they don't want to actually fucking drink any. And it just, they sort of beat the fun out of drinking beer, which is hard to do.
Right. Yeah, I've almost reverted back to just liking light beer, just normal, shitty, like Miller Lite these days.
Okay, and by the way, if you're keeping score at home, that's Dunkin' Donuts, and we'll be sending apology notes to following the roundtable broadcast. We'd like to thank our former sponsors.
It's like we become such beer and coffee snobs.
Well, I was going to say bunch of freaking rock and roll snobs on. It's bad enough for all snobs about music.
The
T-shirt he's wearing.
Upper echelon.
Oh, you're wearing a T-shirt from that band. Can you name 430 of their songs? It's like,
Yeah.
and you know what? I'd be curious. When was the first time any of you guys ever met one another? When was there any cross-pollination between Crobot and Anthrax for the first time?
We toured in 2015, I think it was, right?
I think so.
2015?
Yes.
Yeah, that was the first time.
You remember what the circumstances were?
Was it Volbeat?
Yeah, the Volbeat. I think the U.S. Stadium tour came first, I believe.
Yeah, I think so too. But
Yeah,
that tour was fun with Volbeat.
Yeah.
That was a good time.
Yeah, it was. I think Saxon was on one leg, and then Anthrax was on the other. And yeah, man, playing stadiums is awesome. Not stadiums, what? Like arenas. It was arenas. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Charlie,
Yeah,
you mentioned
fun.
Charlie, you mentioned that was a fun tour. What's the difference between a fun tour and a non-fun tour? Like, what are the things that go on that just make a tour stand out a little bit to you?
I think the best part about being on tour is if you enjoy the other bands on the tour. And, for the most part, you've been in a band for so long and you're traveling with this gang in your bus or whatever, how you travel. And, some days you're sick of that gang and then you want to go and hang out with the other guys on the tour. And I always found that it always takes one of us to bring in some of the other bands on the tour into the the mix, and then everybody one by one starts to get to know each other, and then boom, it's like, hey, let's go for a drink, let's do that, shit like that. So it always makes a tour a lot of fun. It makes it actually go faster when there's a lot of camaraderie.
Do you recall the very first set that you caught Crobot doing? Because I remember my reaction, and I've told the guys this before. It's like I don't think I'm going to embarrass them. I was like, what the fuck is this, and how can I get some more of it?
Actually, I remember our agent, Mike, and Melanie were like, you're going to love this band. I said, I am? And they're like, yeah. And that's what happened. So I enjoyed it.
Do you guys, when do you recall first listening to Anthrax, guys?
I was a kid. Yeah, I mean, just growing up learning all those iconic thrash riffs,
Five years old.
But yeah, growing up, I was always, Metallica, Anthrax, Pantera. I was never the biggest Slayer fan when I was younger. That came later in life, but yeah, just iconic bands.
Wow.
And Brandon, you and Charlie worked together on this cover tune, one of the two Rush songs Charlie's recently done. But Charlie, you know what? Actually, before we dive into that, I think maybe a little bit of background on Yo Wanna Go for a Drive and Yo Watch the grew out of the other. And I think to talk about the cover songs, it helps to get a little bit of background on this that you've been doing for a bit.
So basically what happened back in like, I don't know, January, February, when this pandemic thing hit, and I was just glued to the TV. I was watching news like 24/7,
Yeah.
and I found myself getting really depressed. Like every day I was just like, this is not good. And day by day, I just found myself just being completely bummed out and depressed. I'm like, this has got to stop. So I stopped watching it and I started to get creative and started calling some friends. I was like, hey, I'm doing this thing. You want to do this? You want to do that? Blah, blah, blah. And then boom, it just snowballed. The first Rush song we did was YYZ, but it's an instrumental. So it was the three of us, myself, Ra, who's in the band Suicidal Tendencies, Alex Skolnick, who's in Testament. And then we did that. And then the response was so great. And we had so much fun doing it that we followed that up with La Villa Strangiato, another instrumental. And that was great. We had such a good time doing that too. And then we were all talking and we were like, we got to do one with vocals now. Who can we get? And at that time, two people from our agency, TKO, Mike and Melanie, said, you know, Brandon's really good at singing. And I'm like, oh my God. And then it just hit me. Yes. So we asked Brandon to do Free Will. That was another one we did. And then we followed that up with Red Barchetta. And we're just on this love of like doing this and love of Rush. So it was all organic and it was just came together really quick.
Brandon, when you first got the call and learned about the lineup, what were your thoughts? And did you have any trepidation about covering Rush? Because as great as your vocals are, I think tackling Geddy Lee is that's an acquired talent. That's not the easiest guy, I think, to do good tribute to. So tell me your first reaction to getting to do this, and then walk me through how you made sure you nailed it.
Oh, when I heard Charlie wanted me for the gig, I was ecstatic. And, you know, obviously to be in the same sentence as those guys is just, you know, It's an honor in and of itself. So to get the call to do the gig was like, yeah, absolutely. You know, I'm going to make sure I nail it because it is Rush and it is Geddy Lee. And I've been singing Rush songs for as long as I can remember. My dad was a huge Rush fan, and you know, it's just been part of my soundtrack. And Geddy Lee's voice and imitating Geddy Lee's voice has been a part of my arsenal for a long time. And even growing up, playing in cover bands, we used to do Rush medleys and crazy stuff like that. So, but yeah, it was an absolute blast to do and a lot of fun, and to kind of test myself to make sure that bullet's still in the arsenal for sure.
Can you, I know you're not prepared for anything, but can you whip off a little Geddy Lee for us right now? A little or something?
Here we go. Oh, salesman!
There you go, all right. Not bad. Spur of the moment, that's okay. Because again, it's not like you're going out to do Louis fucking Louis with Rush songs. I'm kind of thinking that's something, that's the vocal that you really want to make sure you're warmed up and prepared for. Charlie, what was your first introduction to Rush? By way of an example, my older sister's boyfriend, when I was a kid, his name was Carlos, and he had an 8-track of the excellent Fly By Night album. Mm-hmm. And I thought the title track was awesome. And then I heard one of the ballads on it, Rivendell, and the fact that there was a rock band doing a song about a place in J.R.R. Tolkien's Middle-earth blew my 10-year-old mind. So what was your very first introduction to Rush, do you recall?
Growing up in New York, we were late to the Rush game, you know, because Rush were more, you know, of course they come from Canada, but they appealed more to the Midwest at first. So I didn't get into them till like All the World's a Stage. Well, like 2112, All the World's a Stage around that time. Because I used to hang out with older kids back then, and they would always turn me on to this or that, like Kiss, and all that stuff. So Rush just was a part of that. And as soon as I heard the drumming, I was just like, just immediately like, what is that? What's going on there? And that was the first thing that attracted me to them was the drumming. And, a lot of people forget, well, they don't forget, but, a lot of bands who came after them modeled themselves after Rush. But the one thing about Rush is like they wrote songs. Like they could have 11-minute piece, long songs, but you're totally captivated by the whole thing because each one of them brought so much to that song. Like Neil's lyrics are just, they're amazing. You can just read them as a story. That Red Barchetta story is just so great,
And I know as a longtime fan, you took his death really hard. Do you recall what the circumstances were when you first learned that Neil had passed away?
I got a text about it, and I kind of heard months prior that something wasn't good, and but I didn't say anything. I just kept it to myself, and then got a text, and I was completely just stopped what I was doing and just thought about everything from the past. All those thoughts come into your head, like last time I saw him was at a Revolver Awards. This is probably maybe 5 years ago, and got to talk to him for a little bit. And he's Neil Peart. He's like, the Michael Jordan of drummers,
I actually did a couple of album premiere specials with the other guys in the band, but he really rarely ever did press of any kind. So,
well, that was so shocking to us too, that he was at the Revolver Awards because it would usually be Alex or Geddy, but Neil was there, and Mike Portnoy, he knew Neil really well, and he's like, let's go talk to Neil. And I was like, what?
You don't just talk to Neil.
And we had just released this EP called Anthems. And the first song on that was Anthem by Rush.
Yeah.
So that was the one thing we talked about. And he heard it and loved it and blah, blah, blah. And it was just like, I don't remember anything after that. As soon as he said that, I think I floated. But it was just great,
Brandon and Chris, do you recall any rock star meetings of your own where you met somebody that you sort of worshiped the ground that they walked on, and you had to, be professional and be cool, but inside you were probably melting and screaming back to your 12-year-old rock fan self? Any meetings like that you recall?
One for me was like, I grew up just being the biggest Clutch fan. So Neil Fallon, when we first toured with them, it was sort of like that because he's such a dry guy, and I just wanted him to like not think I was an idiot, But
the bar real high to begin with.
Right.
As long as I'm not a fucking idiot.
That's all I really cared about. And I remember at the end of the tour, the one thing he said to us, he's like, when you guys started the tour, you were really green. He's like, and now you're more of a blue.
Coming from him, that's a rave.
I know. I was like, I'll take it, man.
And Brandon, what about you?
Oh man, the Motorhead tour.
Oh.
We just kept getting glimpses of Lemmy, and you just felt this presence just shake the room no matter how far away he was. Like he could be standing on the opposite end of the arena or the theater, and you'd still feel that presence. And it was like, it's so much buildup until we finally got to meet them, until they had the time to meet us. And man, he was just such the most humble dude. He really would take the time to talk to anybody, his fans. It just really floored me to see a guy of that iconic nature just be so humble and so willing to talk and spend time with his fans. It was really great. Yeah,
whenever anybody's asked about, my meetings or interviews with him, the first thing out of my mouth is, oh, perfect English gentleman. Right? Welcoming, but at the same time, I honestly think Lemmy was, this is going to sound corny, but it's heartfelt. He was like a living embodiment of rock and roll. It was like the music god said, let rock walk in the guise of man. And there was Lemmy with a ash hanging out of the corner of his mouth, So I want to talk about some recent music. Charlie, I think this will be, I'm going to start with you because I think this is a quick, non-existent answer, but there's really nothing yet with any new Anthrax music. I know that answer already. I'm bringing it up just so people don't holler at me and say, why didn't you ask him?
There is new music. There
Yeah.
actually is. There's about 6-7 songs, and it's really good. You know what am I going to say about it? It sucks, dude. It's the worst.
It's our worst ever. But again, there's just nothing that's near coming out or near.
I don't think anybody's thinking anything is coming out until the first thing I want to see come out is a vaccine. Then we're going to put a record out.
There you go. Good thinking. Crobot Gentleman Deuce. Let's talk about Gasoline, which is the latest from you. There's some cool visual stuff for that. But if you would dive in first to the background on the song, if you would be so kind.
Yeah, that was like a last ditch effort for us. We were like, all right, we sort of knew which songs were going to make the album, at least we thought. So we're like, all right, we got 2 weeks. We're giving ourselves a 2-week deadline. Let's write as much as we can in that 2-week period. And Gasoline was one of those tunes. And I think, performing it live now, it takes an even bigger role in our set. It's just such a dynamic song. And we really feel it's one of the best songs we've ever done.
And one of the probably 50 million songs named Gasoline. We didn't really think about it, but how many songs? I mean, I can think of like 10 off the top of my head that are named Gasoline. Right? Seether Gasoline, Audio Slave Gasoline.
See, at least Stone Temple Pilots, one was smart enough to write Vaseline. Yeah.
Oh, dude,
He was a smart dude, always thinking.
Every time we do radio performance acoustic stuff, that's like a joke that no one laughs at that I do. Like, they're like, all right, guys, give it away. Here's Gasoline by Crobot. And then I'll start playing Vaseline. And then I just act like I misheard him. And it's just, it's funny to me,
Now, here's something to think about, some food for thought. You guys being clever entrepreneurs, everybody's done coffee. Some people are doing whiskey. Crobot Gasoline. I mean, it's super cheap now. You guys could market your own.
Listen, man, our last single was Low Life. The last thing we need to do is start marketing Gasoline. People be like,
It's not actually gasoline, it's kerosene, and it's got the dye in it, but don't tell them.
just huff it. You'll get high, man.
Oh, dear God. Charlie, back to you. Tell me about these virtual classrooms.
Virtual classrooms. The thing we're doing with Topeka, that is basically, you know what? It's like I never do clinics. I don't really enjoy doing them.
Yeah.
Getting up and just playing for like an hour. Just it's like, to me, I get bored. So I wanted to invite people in and see how a song becomes a song, from thought to just taking riffs and making them kind of like you sew them together so they make a nice song. And just seeing how that evolves. So that's one thing. And then just drummers who really want to learn about how I started, maybe how did you come up with this fill? How did you do this? How do you apply the guitar to the drums, or does it work in the opposite way? Because a lot of times when I'm writing a song, that the beat immediately just comes to me. So, it's things like that, basically.
Could you ever see yourself in a role as a guest professor or a teacher someplace?
You know what? I thought about getting a pipe and stuff and just sitting. And I don't know. I would think. I think about the movie with Rodney Dangerfield when he goes back to school, and that Sam Kinison part where he's screaming at him. So yeah, I could get into that. Yeah.
I was there in the Hey, everybody's getting laid.
You're a melon.
I know we're running short on time. So if we could, I know this is a difficult thing to talk about because.
Can we talk about one difficult thing before you say that?
Sure, yeah.
How come? Do you like that book behind you so much? Do you have like millions of copies?
Actually, it's my book, and I've been using that as a backdrop because I've done like 50 or 100 interviews in the last couple of months for the book.
Oh, I love it. I just thought you liked the book a lot.
Oh, no. No, actually, let me show you the cover. Time to plug the book. Hold on.
I feel like that whole thing was staged.
Well, actually, it wasn't. And you know what? I haven't been plugging the book in these things, but since Charlie brought it up, I have a book out, Sonic Warrior, My Life as a Rock and Roll Reprobate, Tales of Sex, Drugs, and Vomiting at Inopportune Moments.
Love it.
And those were all the copies. Like I got 35 free copies from the publisher, Rare Bird Lit, and they should have gone out 2 months ago to like friends and family. They're all signed to different people, but I can't get them sent out someplace. So, but anyway, it's a bunch of crazy stories from my life and my career. And the best part is that there are black and white illustrations for everything, including this chapter, the time Keith Richards sucked the life energy out of my body through the palm of my hand. You can see that.
It's amazing.
He's a psychic vampire. He's actually hundreds of years old, by the way. So
when we used to be on Island Records, and their office was in New York. They were on 4th and Broadway.
Yeah.
Right by Tower.
Yeah,
Tower Records. They were above, and Keith Richards used to live in that building. So sometimes when we would go for meetings and we'd be there late, we'd walk out, and Keith would be out there walking his dog, like it was nothing. And not that walking the dog is nothing, but and to say, "Hey, Keith, how are you?" As if we knew this guy. You know what I mean? And it's like it was funny. I don't think he picked up after the dog, but he's a stone, so
What kind of dog did he have?
You just beat me to it.
Oh, it was just like to me, it wasn't anything. It was just like a black lab type of dog,
He probably didn't clean up after it because the dog was actually walking him.
Yeah, right.
Charlie, did the dog ever look up at you and say anything like, fucking off, man, fucking off?
It's funny you said that because one night when we walked out of there, Keith was smoking and so was the dog. The dog was smoking with him.
I'm freebasing me milk bones, mate.
We talked about two legends, by the way, Lemmy and Keith, who were kind of
and two guys who know a little something about smoking a cigarette down to a long ash. I remember the times that I met him, including the time that's in the book. I think it literally was just like a giant cigarette length ash, and it just hung there, and it wouldn't drop until he gave it permission. He just eye it out of the corner of his eye every now and then. So. But to wrap, if you guys could look into the admittedly cloudy crystal balls because of everything going on, I know Crowbot does have some dates that are still on the book for later in the year. What's like as of this second? What's the story on things?
As far as we know, everything's set for September-ish. So, we'll just await to see what happens. We take it day by day, and thankfully on our side, we can continue to be creative. So,
good.
Yeah, that's all we can do. Be creative, and there's no rush. Whenever things are safe, then that's when we'll play again. But until then, we'll continue to be creative and write and play music, in our houses.
And Charlie, with all the irons you have in the fire, what do you think the rest of 2020 is going to sort of lay out like for you?
There'll be no shows for us. The first show we have is next year in Japan, Knotfest in Japan, in the beginning of the year. Other than that, we're probably just going to work on this record, and hopefully everybody else will come out of this okay, and we will see America not be so tribal, and everybody will get along with each other and say hi to your neighbor across the street and not want to kill them, and stuff like that.
I like your thinking, sir. I like your thinking.
Yeah, I'm done with it. I'm done with the way things are going. So I want a new, I want that wave to come in and just wash it all away.
Well, on that awesome thought, we will say goodbye to everybody. Charlie from Anthrax, Brandon and Chris from Crowbot, thank you so much for doing the roundtable discussion. I hope you all stay well and you and yours stay healthy. And hopefully I will see you in the flesh soon.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Good seeing you guys, too, by the way.
See you, man.
Likewise,
Hey,
Charlie.
Charlie, thanks for the plug.
Yeah, whatever.
There you go.
You,
It was
you have,
staged. Dude, the whole thing was staged.
Lou, you have my routing number, right? To send the,
I'll absolutely. I'll send all you guys books. Absolutely.
That'd be
As soon as I
great.
get to
Yeah,
a
I'd love
post
to check
office,
it out.
it's been 10 weeks, but as soon as I get to a post office, autographed copies from yours truly.
awesome.
Awesome.